Hey guys, it's me again, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite books. I read this in January and I cannot get over it. For some reason, I think like the best books I read are in January. Anyways, moving forward. Ugh, forgot to bring the book. It's this. This is the book I'm talking about. His Bloody Project. Documents relating to the case of Roderick McRae. The title is very confusing because the author's name is Graeme McRae Burnett. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. But it's very confusing because Roderick McRae, and Graeme McRae, it's kind of like... I couldn't understand at first if it was a fictional book, if it was based on a true story, something that happened to the author's ancestor. No idea. At the end, the author explains that it's fiction. At least that's what I gathered. I have no relation to Scotland whatsoever, so I'm not very familiar with the names, and frankly, I don't know if McRae is a name, like a middle name, or a surname. So, like, is McRae in the author's name a middle name, or is it like his first surname? I do not know. So the thing with this book is that it gripped me right from the first page, right here. Like, I just did this and I just couldn't stop. And being an avid reader and knowing myself, I'd like to believe that I know myself. I know that very little books have done that for me, or maybe to me. Very little books have gripped me right from the beginning, because most of the time, I read a book and then I move on to the next right away. So it takes me some time to get out of the previous world and into the new one. When you read books back to back, the previous one still floats somewhere inside your head. And getting involved with the new characters takes time. At least for me, I have to force myself through the first couple of chapters until I familiarize with the new world I'm trying to discover. This did not happen in the case of Roderick McRae. It captured me right from the beginning, and it made me cry several times, which is something I did not expect. This was supposed to be a thriller. Am I the only one who cries at thrillers? Roderick McRae, okay, from now on, Roddy, was 17 years old when he killed 3 neighbors. He killed them one morning and then walked back home covered in blood as if nothing had happened. When his neighbors spotted him and asked him what had happened, he just casually said that he had killed the Mackenzies. I think he just said that he had killed Lachlan Mackenzie. He didn't deny a thing. He clearly stated exactly what he had done and showed no intention of avoiding the consequences. He also claimed that he did not care whatever happened to him after that. He was just glad that he had relieved his father of the terror and the torture caused by Mackenzie. The oldest Mackenzie, at least, the father. Roddy had killed Lachlan Mackenzie and 2 kids. It is a very heart-wrenching and gloomy book, and it will definitely stick in your mind after you're done. I just loved it. I loved it. First of all, I'd like to address the atmosphere in the book. The atmosphere is so well built that whenever I had to put down the book, I went through some sort of jet lag until I managed to come back to reality. Although I've never been to Scotland and I have no idea what the Highlands look like, I felt like I was there the whole time. Well, to be honest, I was picturing the mountains of Albania. More like it. Since I used to visit Albania when I was a child, and the summers, growing up are the most vivid pictures I have. My father grew up in a small village in those mountains, and I have very vivid pictures imprinted in my mind that have followed me all the way through adulthood. From the account of Roddy, from the account of Roddy, I found many similarities in the village life, the houses and the crops and the livestock. Although the little map that the book had, let me show you. This little map of the village. This is Roddy's house. This is the neighbor's house who saw him after he was covered in blood. And this is the house of the neighbors he killed. So anyway, this map looks nothing like my dad's village. It still kept coming to me in big surges of pictures and memories. And I could clearly see Roddy's village being, my dad's village very many years ago. Or any village, actually. I don't know why I got attached to the village life so much. I mean, for some reason, it hit very close to home. And I don't know why. I've been living in the city my entire life. Roddy lived in the 1860s. So clearly there are no similarities. Just like little fragments of my imagination connecting, the two villages in my head. I suppose that any other village, if I'd been there when I was young, I would have made the connection too. And if I didn't have these childhood memories, it makes me wonder if I would have connected to this book so much. But now, as I am, the experience was immense. Also, a huge part of the atmosphere building in this book was the impact of showing versus telling. For instance, the author never states that the village had no electricity, that they had no lights, but he has Roddy hiding in the shadows of the victim's home, like when outside there's broad daylight. I really enjoyed the fact that this book had no chapters, just like Carrie, and instead it is split in small parts, like the account / memoir of Roddy, the trials, the doctor's memoir, and even Roddy's account was also split into a few parts. He was supposedly writing about the events that led to the tragic event as he was in his cell waiting to get tried. So this memoir he was writing was split into smaller sections where he describes various events in the last year or so, but also some current events like meeting up with the doctor and his attorney. So through his memoir / account, we have a clear sense of past and present. The most important aspect, and the most shocking one as well, is the sentiment that there are multiple truths. Every single person, from their own point of view, got the chance to express their opinion about Roddy, which was slightly altered depending on the situation with which they were acquainted. For instance, his peers, his classmates, thought that he was just cut off and antisocial. His headmaster thought that he was one of the most intelligent pupils he had ever had. He even urged him towards higher education. The village priest thought he was evil because he didn't show up in church. His father thought that he was undisciplined and that he caused trouble to the family. His neighbors said that he was a kind kid and would do no harm, and there were also other neighbors who said that he was the village idiot. From each one's point of view, the real truth is that Rudy, was really Roddy was all of those things. Even in Roddy's own memoir, we see him like killing a sheep, but also tending to a hurt bird that's fallen off its nest. These are two very different situations, very opposing situations actually, very opposing behaviors that could lead to very opposing conclusions about who Roddy is. And if you know only one of those, like the people who knew that he had killed a sheep thought that he was a terrible human being, but the ones who knew, actually there was only one person who knew about him trying to heal birds, that he was very kind and loving and thoughtful. Well, the truth lies beneath, the reasons why he killed the sheep, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Another example of the truth aspect in this book, this comes from the doctor who examined Roddy's mental health for a plea of insanity. He came to the conclusion that the motives for the murders were different than the motives that Roddy had claimed. Considering, however, that other than the motives that Roddy has expressed himself, there is no way of finding out anything else. So accepting either hypothesis of motives, hypothesis, the hypothesis of the doctor or Roddy's statement, either one of those motives leads on a different conclusion on whether he was out of his reason at the time of the murders. Roddy's claims are the truth, then he was insane. And if the doctor's claims are true, then he wasn't. It's very complicated. In Roddy's memoir, the events leading up to the murders, he discusses his situation in a very clear and rational way. And this comes in great contrast. The way he describes the murders and the way he carried out the murders. The way that he killed Mackenzie and the two kids was so brutal that describing it in a calm tone was even worse. So when Roddy's lawyer tried to publish his memoir / account, hoping to gain the sympathy of the people and start a petition to get him off death row, the publisher chose to publish only the brutal parts, making him look like a bloodthirsty monster, and excluded all the parts that made him human. And all those parts that showed how Mackenzie was torturing his family for the last year or so. Okay, finally, I would like to close this review with a little mention to the doctor's documents, where he judges the criminally minded by the way they look. Sounds familiar? This took me back to Frankenstein and the way everyone just assumed that Gabriel was evil just by the way he looked. If you don't know who Gabriel is, you should watch this. Everyone assumed that he was a monster because of the way he looked, except for the blind man. Just like in the book Frankenstein, in this book too, in his Bloody Project, alienists of the 19th century began their observation from the outside in. The shape of his head, the thick brows, how thin and malnourished he looked, how poor his family was, as if those are any indicators of like if someone is criminal or not. It's so hard to believe that so much attention was given to the appearance of someone, and that the doctor only spoke to Roddy like once, I think. And that was enough to reach a conclusion on his mental state. it was also very interesting how both doctors, in the case of Roddy, spoke about some kind of criminal who was bred and raised as a criminal, as if it is hereditary or something. Very interesting. I'm so glad I wasn't alive in the 19th century. Just saying. Okay, well, the sun is going down, so I won't have natural light for long, so I'll wrap it up. And I'll probably do another, video about his bloody project, because there are so many things I want to talk about. Oh, I can't fit it all in one video. So I'm gonna leave you for now and maybe do this another time. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.